and I'm at the moment would like to give the floor. Let me see in the chat. Yeah, everybody's hearing me, so that's great. So please keep on introducing yourself in the chat. It's great to see from where you are writing and who you are. So I'm giving now the floor to Francesca Helm, that you can see there in the video, for an introductory presentation on what is virtual exchange. Francesca, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Fabio, and thank you everybody for being here and taking the time to be here this morning. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about what virtual exchange is. Now, Fabio has already kind of laid the ground for the situation we're in now. International mobility is facing some challenges, and educators at universities, we're scrambling to shift teaching online. What a lot of people are highlighting at the moment is the importance of care and humanity at this time. So also as we transfer our teaching, making these connections with our students and also supporting students in connecting with one another in meaningful ways. And now this is what virtual exchange is very much about. Virtual exchange is a pedagogic approach, if you like, a transnational and intercultural online learning activity which engages participants in real-time dialogue with the support, and this is very important, of trained facilitators who can ensure that the interactions are meaningful. So virtual exchange is sustained over time and a designed pedagogical process. It is connecting people across borders and across differences. Again, something which I feel is very important and very much needed at this time, because what we're facing is a global crisis and we need to learn, interact and understand from each other. So if now we're connecting through a Zoom webinar, and we're seeing more and more images of this kind of tiled platform on social media as people are moving their meetings and classes online. This image here is the if you go, Fabio, is the portals that we'll be using for many of the dialogue programs in Erasmus Virtual Exchange. And here, again, you can see that the visual dimension, so it's what most of our activities involve young people in, is dialogues in this circular format where the focus is very much on interacting with one another and also listening. I'd like to highlight that I've been doing the research on this program, and what a lot of participants highlight is how the interactions they're having through virtual exchange are very different to interactions they were having face-to-face and also social media interactions, because many of the dialogue sessions are sustained over 2 hours and they meet other young participants for the same amount of time over multiple weeks. And also they say that they learn to listen to each other. And you can see here, this is one of the platforms we're using, has a raise a hand button. So we are not interrupting one another, we are listening to speak to each other. If you go to the next slide, Fabio, yes. What makes Erasmus Virtual Exchange unique? I suppose what distinguishes it from physical mobility in a sense is scalability. Mobile programs are important, but as we know before, they're not available to everyone, and this has become clear to us now with coronavirus. Now, of course, there is a digital divide, and this is what Fabio highlighted also at the beginning of the presentation. Internet penetration rates are not 100%. Not all families have computers at home and tools. But it is more scalable and accessible to people than physical mobility, particularly at this moment. Also, it's about experiential learning. So it's young people learning from one another through developing a community of trust. So again, as I said before, young people meet regularly in small groups, and with the support of facilitators and educators, they're learning to listen to one another and develop these transnational intercultural communities of trust. And the interactions are generally driven by the interests of the participants in the group. So there are programs, but there's also the learner-led interactions. And how can the virtual exchange be integrated within higher education? This is the focus of our talk here today. There are many is, and we're going to talk about this later on, my colleagues will be talking about this, as we've moved our classes online, Virtual Exchange adds this international and intercultural dimension, and there are two main ways. You can have your students participate in a ready-made virtual exchange as a component of a course or as an extracurricular activity, or educators can follow short training programs and develop a collaborative virtual exchange with a colleague in another country. And this perhaps is the idea of collaboration and being in it together. So online learning is difficult, it's challenging, but we can also support one another in this process and collaboratively move our courses online.
Sorry, thank you very much, Francesca. So if you have, for this speedy presentation about the virtual exchange idea and methodology, so if you have questions in general about virtual exchange, please use the chat again, and I will be quite keen in keeping the time to allow some possibility to our testimonials we have prepared for you to also to speak. So this was a virtual exchange in general as a concept and as a methodology, and now we are going to dive into the initiative we are talking about. It is Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange, that, as you can hear from the name, has a strong European origin and Erasmus Plus origin. So I'm calling Stefanie Siklossi, our project leader from Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange. Steph?
Thank you, Fabio. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining this masterclass today. So I'll give you just some general information about the initiative. So Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange is an innovative pilot project which was launched by the European Commission in early 2018, with the overall aim to allow as many young people as possible to benefit from a meaningful intercultural learning experience online. And I'd like to insist again on the word meaningful here, because these are really structured educational programs using the pedagogy that Francesca just described a minute ago. So this project is meant to expand the reach and the scope of the Erasmus program through virtual exchange as a complement to physical exchange programs. And it was launched with two main objectives. On the one hand, it's about fostering mutual understanding and dialogue, and therefore kind of shifting the attitudes of young people vis-a-vis difference, making them more tolerant, and giving them the tools to address diversity in a constructive and positive way. And then on the other hand, it's about promoting the development of key soft skills, equipping the young people with the competencies that they need to succeed in today's globalizing world, and also to become active citizens. The target is to reach 25,000 people over the 3-year pilot period. We are pretty much at 20,000 now, so we're doing very well on our target numbers. And of course, the hope is that this pilot initiative will be expanded and upscaled in the future based on all the lessons learned during the pilot. And finally, so it's implemented by a consortium of 8 organizations that you can see here on the slide. Now, who is the target audience who can participate in this initiative? Well, firstly, it's any young person from Erasmus Plus countries and the Southern Mediterranean region, aged between 18 and 30. So the initiative offers a range of different virtual exchange programs on various thematic scopes and duration, and these will be also detailed later on in this webinar. Also, this initiative is targeting educators, university staff, youth workers, because it's also offering training to build their capacity to use this innovative learning methodology. Now, what are the benefits for students? First of all, as I said earlier, the idea is really to offer young people the opportunity to develop key transversal skills. And here we're talking about skills like intercultural communication, digital and media literacy, and other such skills, communication languages that are important for employability. They also get the unique chance to build personal relationships and networks across borders, often in countries that are far from where they live, and possibly with other young people and their peers that they would not have the opportunity to meet in normal circumstances. So with their peers who have very different cultural, religious backgrounds, and this of course will broaden their perspectives. Virtual Exchange also offers a safe online space where the young people can acquire the skills and the tools they need to become responsible and global citizens, including critical thinking, curiosity, and empathy. Another advantage is that participation in such programs can also trigger the interest of young people in mobility for those young people who would not perhaps have considered such options before. And then it's also a recognized experience which they can use for their further development and also towards employers. Now, the initiative also has many benefits for educators because, of course, we need today, especially today, to innovate with digital learning approaches and environments. And also, we need to make sure that we promote an inclusive education. So the project offers professional development and learning opportunities so that educators can enrich their programs through new pedagogic approaches, and also to bring an international dimension to their curricula. For higher education institutions, it is also a medium to strengthen internationalization at home strategies, but also digitalization in education. You will also see later that through the project, you can also support blended mobilities using virtual exchange in combination with mobility. And finally, Erasmus Virtual Exchange can support the creation of inter-institutional agreements and also strengthen partnerships with other higher education institutions in different countries in Erasmus Plus and Southern Mediterranean countries. Now, one important point to highlight is that participation in all our activities is recognized through digital badges. These badges can be displayed on your online spaces such as LinkedIn, online CVs, Europass, etc., etc., so that young people and also educators can show that they have gained a certain number of skills and competencies through these activities. Now, I'd just like to give you a few highlights from the past 2 years of implementation so that you see the scale and the reach of the project. So in 2018 and 19, we reached over 18,000 people throughout the different activities, of which 16,000 were young people who participated in exchange activities. We also built nearly 200 partnerships with higher education institutions and youth organizations. 350 Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange facilitators who became part of this community through training were also engaged in all our activities. And as you can see, we have a higher ratio of women participants with around 60%, and a slightly higher number of Southern Mediterranean participants. And finally, in terms of the impact of the different activities, we've been monitoring and evaluating through a number of qualitative and quantitative data collection, which has shown very strong evidence of the positive impact, not only on the development of transversal skills that I mentioned before, but also in shifting the attitudes of young people. And here you can see on the slide now some of the main highlights of the impact. And if you're interested, you can also learn much more about the impact in our brochure, but also in our impact report.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. This was very, I would say, I will leave the impact slide on the screen so that people can get an understanding of the fact that virtual exchange in Europe through this initiative seems to be working in one sentence, and seems to be actually very rewarding both for the participants, meaning the young people and the students, and for the what I call intermediaries, so the professors and international relation officers and staff of universities who are actually a very important part in the process. I know that we are receiving a lot of questions, and I'm asking Juliet to jump in if there are a few questions that we want to answer in general on virtual exchange and on the initiative itself, before diving into actually the most urgent question, that is, what can virtual exchange do for you as universities at this very moment, in this present situation of special need, I would say, of ideas and activities of this kind. Juliet,
yes.
Yeah, there you are.
Just a quick recap, or to make sure that we will follow up on the questions specifically. We've seen some questions about the image that Francesca Helm showed, where the virtual exchanges take place. This is a specifically designed exchange portal. This is not open for wider public, so it's not an application like Zoom, for example, or Skype. And if you're joining one of the activities that will be highlighted during this presentation, for example, by Sophie Milner in a little bit, students will get access to this exchange portal. This is not a full-on learner management system, although for the specific exchanges there are some options to track the progress of students, but this is not accessible for universities, for example. And some other questions, how to get involved, please stay tuned, because we will be covering that step by step, and examples will be given also by people from the field. We have some panelists here that can walk you through how to get involved with the specific activities. So please stay tuned. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Juliet. And I also saw that some questions are being answered bilaterally. So in some cases, when the question is very specific, you'll get it by our experts. And how to integrate virtual exchange in your work, in the work of your university, teaching activity with virtual exchange. So I'm giving the floor to Sophie. I can see you there. See? Yes, there you are.
Hi everyone. So yes, I'm Sophie Milner. My team and I, including Juliet, who just spoke, implement the interactive open online courses that we call IUCs. I'm also going to be joined later by Laura Hoskins and Marta Geralt, who are partners in our courses. And they're here because it's nice to hear from someone who's experienced it and who have implemented it, and they can say a little bit about their own first-hand experience. So So I wanted to sort of start by reiterating a little bit what my colleagues have said about why now and what we can help you with. I realise the challenge that everyone is facing right now, and I don't know if you're aware how many of us are here today, but I think there was something like 500 registered. So firstly, that shows that you're not alone, and secondly, that probably you're in the right place. So my role here is to explain some of the ways that we can alleviate some of your workload. I'm going to describe some of our ready-made packages, which basically means that you only need to offer this opportunity to your students, and we will take care of the rest. So the idea behind this is that our courses can offer continuity in the of education during the disruption that you're facing with the closures of universities. Our courses, because they have this international, intercultural element, can fill the gap normally filled in international mobility. So if you've got a pool of students who had their study abroad cut short, for instance, this is an opportunity to fill that space. Our courses are valued at between 1, 3 or 5 ECTS credits. So again, you can see the workload and you can decide how you fit that in. And essentially that our goal is to try to help you during this period. Okay, so there are 2 courses that I want to explain to you: the interactive open online courses and the dialogue exchanges. So I'll first explain the interactive open online courses. These are built around expert content. So we have created a lecture series by expert academics and practitioners. They have short video lectures, bite-sized presentations that are really designed to get students thinking about a topic. So they're theme-based courses on a topic stimulated by expert content. They are pitched at a very accessible level. So if you're in politics, if you're in sciences, if you're in business languages, they are accessible to all of those disciplines. And it's actually very nice to have that range, interdisciplinary range, because all students come with different ideas. The heart of both of these courses are the online facilitated dialogues. And Fran said earlier about the kind of experiential aspect of our courses. This is where they learn from and with each other, that they develop that kind of empathy and compassion that Fran also mentioned. These are small groups. They're facilitator-led, and they develop these meaningful relationships amongst each other. All of the interactive open online courses are on socio-political issues, so ranging from migration to identity, hate speech, populism. Those are some of the things that we've covered. And we do this because we want those courses to have relevance to young people, and tap into current affairs. So those are interactive open online courses. The dialogue exchanges are also very similar. There are some key differences. So again, they have as their heart these small group facilitator-led dialogue sessions. They're not theme-based, so the students have a bit more autonomy to shape the direction of the discussion, so it's perhaps more free-flowing. And just as with the interactive open online courses, the learning intention is these transversal skills, the active listening and the empathy and the curiosity and intercultural skills. And they also vary between 1 ECTS and 3 ECTS, the dialogue exchanges, whereas the interactive open online courses are 3 to 5. So I won't go too much into detail about who can participate, because I think Stephanie explained that really well. But as you can see, it's open to students at universities and other HEIs. We also accept young professionals, and they add an expert level too. And I work with professors and educators to find ways to implement the course. And I think this is really what you've all come to hear, which is how do you actually get to put this into your university courses, and is it going to be really difficult to do? So in a nutshell, you can offer this as a standalone ready-made course, and all you need to do that is just get students to register, and that it can be as simple as that. And then we will look after those students during the course of 4 to 10 weeks. You can also have a whole range of tailor-made options. So if you would like to have a bit more hand in the experience of your students, you can run it alongside your talk program. You can offer it for credits. You can swap maybe one of your assignments to balance the workload. So you can really tailor-make how you integrate it, from simply getting your students to register with us, and that's all you have to do, to fully integrating and weaving it into your own course. Marta Geralt, who's going to speak in a minute, has done this. So she's done the full blended learning. So there's a range of different options for you. But essentially, you can balance this by having your theory in the classroom balanced by the practice of this intercultural exchange. So what do students gain? This is very important. They need to know that they get something out of this. The credits, as I spoke a moment ago, varies from 1 to 3 for the dialogue exchange, CP is a Connect program, or 3 to 5 credits for our interactive open online courses. We also offer the badges that was spoken about earlier, but essentially what you're giving your students is this interactive, intercultural experience and the skills that they would learn otherwise in international mobility or through this really meaningful and intensive experience. And as you can see, they're offered in 2 other languages, English and Arabic. And before I pass over to Laura and Marta, just stick around for the end of the presentation, and there's a calendar of all the different courses that are running and the dates when you can participate. So I would like to hand over to Laura, if you're happy to say a few words about your experience working with us.
Yes. If you can you hear me? Yeah. So my name is Laura Hoskins. I'm an English teacher at the University of Bordeaux. I should say it's not in physics and chemistry, but I'm in human and health sciences. And we were in contact with Sophie Milner in 2018 to see how we could integrate virtual exchange into our the courses we offered, and we really liked the idea of it. We'd seen a little bit about virtual exchange sort of on Twitter groups and things like that, but we hadn't actually taken the plunge. So what we did, we ran it as a pilot, and we offered it to our advanced level students. So I teach English to my students, and every year we have maybe about 5% of the students that are either a C1 or a C2 level, and that we're looking for something more out of their English course. So we offered a small group of students the opportunity to follow Erasmus Virtual Exchange, the Culture Encounters course, instead of following their English classes. So just as a substitution, it was just as a swap. And in order to validate their English course, they would have to validate the Culture Encounters course, Erasmus Virtual Exchange Culture Encounters course. And it's grown quite a lot since that first session. I have another colleague, English teacher colleague, that is in physics and chemistry in another department, that she's offered it to lots of students. And the return has generally been very positive, and that's kind of what has kept momentum up and really encouraged us to explore other ways of integrating virtual exchange into our programs. I think along the way, we've come up with different solutions and different sort of hacks to follow our students and to mentor them. Because the first time we did it, it was just a case of recruiting the students and sending them to the program. This year, this semester, I met with all the students, and we set up a Moodle page where they where they upload the writing that they do, the reflective diaries that they do, and that's what we use to follow them and in order to grade them as well and grade them in part for their English course. So it helps us to follow our students. It helps us to also to evaluate them, and it's really helped us, I think, to see the value of virtual exchange, because I'm not the only teacher that sends students into the course, but probably I have a good overview of what happens in culture encounters. But the other other teachers that were more sort of on the periphery, when they read what their students have written in the reflective diaries, it's really eye-opening for them. And they see, I think it's really helped to engage other teachers, even if they're not launching into virtual exchange themselves, but in promoting the course among their students. Are there any other details that I should cover, Sophie?
I rather sneakily included how much do you need to know about online learning for students to join? I wondered if you could say how much other colleagues would need to know.
I don't think they need to know much, really. I'm pretty techie, but for the first edition, when we set it up in 2018, I was kind of on the outside of it. I sent my students in and everything was taken care of for them. So I don't think you need to know much, really. I don't think you should be a technophobe. I mean, I think I'm a technophile. But yeah, I don't think you need to be particularly techie or tech savvy to get into it, no, with the ready-made options that are offered. Yeah.
Thanks ever so much, Laura. Is there anything else that you want to add to tell people about?
I would just say go for it, because in 2018 we kind of got it off the ground really quickly. I wrote out some emails to students, and the 5 students that did it, they really enjoyed it. And we were in a situation in 2018 where we had a student sitting in our department, so we were out of our offices a bit like now for a good part of the semester. And it was really valuable for the students that did it, because they were able to connect with other students around the world. And one of them said in their feedback, it was the one thing that lived up to his expectations in that semester. So yeah.
Well, thanks ever so much, Laura. So can I bring in Marta or Juliet?
Can I ask a question? But maybe that's also for Marta, because I'm seeing a very relevant question coming up in the chat from the educator's point of view. Were you able to follow and monitor the students that followed one of these courses?
Shall I answer, Sophie?
Should we bring Marta in?
Marta, yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. So I'm Marta Giral, and I work in the University of Limerick. And my experience, well, should I answer the question first, maybe, before introducing myself, or I can go over all my experience and then add information about this, monitoring the students while they are engaging in the Erasmus Virtual Exchange course. So my module, that basically that's the one that I work with and with sharing perspectives, is a module entitled Communication Across Cultures. And we follow this blended learning approach using our face-to-face lectures with the students to go through more theoretical and to discuss more conceptual or things that are really classroom sort of activities, and then the students engage with the virtual exchanges, and that's really the experiential part of the module, because they have these weekly online dialogue sessions, and they talk and discuss and share things related to current affairs or socio-political situations or topics with people from different cultures. So it really complements very well what we do and the aims of our module. So it's been going since 2018. and the module is giving credits to the students. So when they participate in the Erasmus Virtual Exchange, in the cultural encounters, so that's taking part of the course of the program, the online program, gives them 40%, or that depends on the year if they have to do their activities, but around 40 or 50% or 60% of their grades, and then they have to do other work for me, which complements their final grades. So about the question of the monitoring how the students are doing, we are in continued contact with sharing perspectives with Sophie. We get just some reports about more from the maybe quantitative point of view, if they attended the sessions and their participation, and then there is several activities they need to do, not just attending the mediated sessions. They have also to do some video dialogues, and also there is another activity they do at the end, that interview. No, that's the video dialogues. I'm sorry. The first one is they have to comment on video lectures as well. So there's a range of activities that the sharing perspectives offers them, and they have to be following. They have to do a journal as well, which we work with that journal for their final reflective assignment. So everything it's really integrated and combined.
I think that really shows that how you can work within your own talk course and how you can blend it together. It's a really good sort of summary of how engaged you are inside the course. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Marta.
Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you to the three of you. Actually, this was not only instructive, but also gave an example of how easy it is. At the end of the day, I think many professors now are a bit overwhelmed by, especially the request by some universities of moving online their teaching. So the fact of having something ready-made and of a proven quality, of course, is that they can substitute or they can complement with their activity. I think it's absolutely a good opportunity. Now, I've seen many questions answered. Well, I've seen many questions, first of all. Thank you very much. And again, I swear that all the questions will be answered. If not now, if we don't make it now by email to all of you with some mini facts, frequently asked questions when we were going to write to you with the registration of the webinar. Some questions are being answered in the chat. In the moment, I think we just need. I think the two pressing issues that I've seen coming up quite a lot are language and accreditation, ECTS. So, well, then there are many more. So, I think, yeah, exactly. So, I would like to move now to the. Let's keep those in mind for the last discussion session, and let's move to first of all, I will show you the handbook for international relation officers of universities, and the handbook where everything, more or less everything that you are listening to now is explained. And then I'll move to Sara Pittarello from Uni Collaboration, again another partner of Erasmus Virtual Exchange, who will actually take us through the practical steps to get engaged. Many questions had to do with how to do it. Okay, now that we hope a good majority of you are convinced about the goodness of this thing, how to really do it, what are the first steps. So, Sara, this to you, and in the meantime, we keep noting the questions that pop up. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabio, and good morning to everybody. Actually, so many of the questions asking how you can actually add content or topics or designing something specific, and I'm actually here to reply to these questions. I think that approaching the end of this presentation, which was quite exhaustive, we could recap the whole process of adopting the virtual exchange model with this image. It is like climbing a staircase, quoting Jean Moreau. It is actually you, as higher education institution staff, who decide which step you want to take, to what level you want to commit, or where you think you should stop, all based on your institution's targets and policies. When you reply to those questions, you can actually which path to take. It's like being at a crossroads, and if Fabio, you can move to the following slide, please. Okay, this is the crossroads. Shall I get something which is already available, as Sophie has shown to you earlier? In that case, content, duration, student workload is already set, is already established, because you are integrating something which is already available. And in that case, the commitment for you as educators will be lower if compared to designing your own virtual exchange project. We will now focus on how then to develop a transnational Erasmus Plus virtual exchange project. This is the other path at the crossroad you may decide. In that case, the first thing you have to do is actually join the training. The Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange has developed a two-step trainings for higher education institutions. And in that case, it will enable you to decide and to come out with a clear idea about what you want to design and develop. And you will be taken care of all through this process. Of course, in case you decide to establish your own transnational Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange project, TAP is the acronym, you will decide the duration, you will decide the content, and you will, of course, be more committed. So the trainings are developed, as I was saying before, in a two-step approach. First, there is a basic training getting you familiar with the whole concept, and second, an advanced training for those who already have a clear idea in mind and already have a partner. Don't worry if you do not have a partner already, because after the training, the basic one, there will be in between a partnering fair, and you can be matched to a potential partner. And the transnational trainings, I think, a way to attract people to get this experience, to get involved, would be just listening to what participants in the training said. And precisely yesterday, there was actually a meeting with participants in the trainings, asking them to speak about what they experienced now after the coronavirus outbreak. And I think their feedback was great, and they would like to share just a couple of comments with you. First, thanks to the training, we could get familiar with tools like Moodle or Zoom, which are used by Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange. Second, we could experience what students see and experience from the other side. Just imagine the idea of planning an hour session, synchronous session online. It is not to be taken for granted. The commitment, the workload, how to facilitate, how to make students interact. Second, another important feedback was, okay, in this way, we could not only focus on the technological side, but always take in mind the educational side, the innovative part of educational offer. And this is very important, because nowadays, as you are experiencing now, especially now, all the issues is about the technological side. But this is just one side. The other side, and I would say the first side, is that you are offering your students and you're offering something new in educational terms, something really new, and the tool is just at the service of your own needs and of your own objectives. Just to leave you with quick examples of what you can do, because your question might be, why should I take the time now to do all of that? Why should I do that? And just a couple of ideas of what you could do. You could design a pre-mobility activity for your students. think about those Erasmus students who could not leave, those Erasmus students who are now who cannot move and are now abroad. This could also be not only as a pre-mobility activity, but also as a support activity. You could think about integrating virtual exchange into already existing projects, strategic partnerships, capacity buildings, all those of you who are familiar with the Erasmus Plus program, into future projects, into existing networks, into future networks of higher education institutions. You could also think about the innovative side of the educational offer, which Erasmus Plus virtual exchange enhance, and by doing so, developing new joint and flexible curricular or even challenge-based short-term learning programs. This could be a valid alternative. And if your institution is focusing on enhancing the competencies of staff, you could think about developing joint staff training strategies, or consider, especially now, the fact that many students can't do their placement. This could be a valid alternative. So go for online placement. This is just to recap all you can do in case you decide to develop your own transnational Erasmus Plus virtual exchange projects. Without forgetting, as was already mentioned before, that students can also get involved individually. As already explained, this is a further opportunity, and I think I should now leave the floor to Juliet and Fabio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sara. This was very helpful. So you've seen that we have two main strengths. I like the idea of the crossroad. So you have on one side these ready-made activities that are, let's say, ready-made, so well designed, well packaged, well thought, and where you don't have to co-design them. And on the other side, you have this option of learning about virtual exchange, learning about how to design a project, and then actually designing and implementing your own virtual exchange project in collaboration with partners from Europe or the Mediterranean. So this is it. Now, I think we are left with some 15 minutes with a couple of very important slides that I would like to leave on whilst we answer to the questions. So the first slide is presenting the upcoming opportunities, because everything we presented, so the interactive open online courses or the TEPS training for higher education, the Connect program, the dialogues and so on, they all take place within windows of time, of course. So as you can see there, the spring-summer session of Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange is going to be pretty busy, and actually we are trying to enrich it as much as possible, given the increased relevance, we believe, of our activities in the present moment. So you can see there a number of courses which were presented by Juliet, starting already in April, and the first deadline actually is the 5th of April, so is very close, but not impossible, of course. And then you have all the activities there. Now, whilst all these activities are also reported on our website, on the hub, but we'll come to that later. So while you make up your mind and you choose which one, you decide which one to choose, I would like to give the floor to Juliet again for some questions that were selected by the questions team, actually, among the many questions we received. Juliet?
Yes. I think a question that kept coming up, but I'm not sure if it's answered already, was about the ECTS. I'm wondering if Sophie wants to take a very short moment to explain a bit more about that. And let's start with that first.
Okay, so ECTS, I've put into the chat box a document which outlines our courses, our upcoming courses, and includes the workload and the ECTS value. So our intention is that we have created a workload equivalent to 3 ECTS or 5 ECTS, depending on the length of the course. Currently our courses are, our flagship course, our 10-week course is valued at 5 or 6 ECTS. So we're very familiar with understanding the workload and how these courses are accredited. So I would recommend just having a look at the document and then getting in touch with us. Of course, it's open to be adjusted to your particular needs. But that should be a good starting point.
Exactly.
Thank you, Sophie.
If I just a small thing, when Sophie was mentioning tailor-made integration, actually it's really tailor-made, meaning that you as a professor can get in touch with us, with the faces you see on the screen. Sophie, for example, can be the main contact person of higher education for IUX, and then you can really discuss individually for your specific case how to make it happen the best way for you. So it's not this MOOC style tailor-made, where it's not really tailor-made. This is really on a one-by-one case. It's just for you to tell you, because we understand how complicated it can be to integrate something meaningfully in your activities. There was a question on language also, which is quite fast, and on cost. I saw. Sorry, Julia. Yeah.
Yeah, for these I thought Stephanie could answer cost and languages. And then we have a question, I think, for Fran about non-formal, dual, and lifelong learning and how that's supported by virtual exchange.
Yes, so on the question of language, just to say that, again, that this is a pilot project, and in this pilot phase, most of activities are offered in English, and we have also a few opportunities in Arabic and in French. So for the time being, there are no activities offered in other language. However, in the TEP model that was just explained by Sarah, there is some more flexibility, of course, to do the actual projects in other languages, or trans-languaging with different languages in the exchanges. But yeah, one key aspect is that, of course, everyone participating in the exchange needs to be able to understand what is being said by their peers. And so, yeah, English remains the lingua franca, but there are also some opportunities. Now, when it comes to the cost, so all these activities are free, offered for free, the training and exchange opportunities. We, of course, in this period, we realize that there will be higher demand. We will try and accommodate that as much as possible, but we may have to kind of limit the number of participants in the activities depending on the capacity and the number of applications and registrations. So, but yeah, in essence, you can join all of these activities through going onto the hub, and I've shared the link. I will share it once again. You can check out more details about all the opportunities available there.
Fantastic. So thank you very much. I think these cost and language are very basic but important questions. Then we have the question about more a pedagogic aspect, I think, Juliet.
Yeah, there's the question of how non-formal, dual, and lifelong learning education is supported by virtual exchange, which I'm...
So yeah, I mean, there's for the ready-made activities, activities are open to people within the age group of 18 to 30. Obviously, if you're introducing a class and there are a couple of people who are older than 30, then exceptions can be made for this. In terms of the training to develop your own exchange, this is available to anybody and any form of education. So so youth workers, educators working in the formal or non-formal sector in adult education can follow the training and then develop an exchange with another colleague. And this is what somebody has I've seen a nice comment about collaborative learning. So people follow the training and then meet other educators or other youth workers and together develop a project which they can implement with their student groups. So it's also a way of collaborating and learning yourself as an educator with another educator. So you can support each other in this time of difficulty. And I already see some people in the chat talking about, we can develop a maths exchange together. Again, it's not easy. Online education isn't easier. But in many ways, if you're doing this together with somebody else, then you can support each other and also learn from each other as you do this. And then you can have facilitators which can support your students interacting with one another. So there are a lot of approaches, and there is a deadline coming up for the training. Normally there's a basic training to understand virtual exchange, to experience it as a student. And then there is an advanced training where, with a partner, you will follow the course and develop your exchange with somebody else. We do also organize partnering fairs for educators to help them find another partner to develop an exchange with. But you can find information about that.
Yeah, then I see thank you very much, Fran. I see then a question targeted to Sarah.
And sorry, can I just quickly reply to Thomas? Considering the time pressure, if you can go to the advanced training, if you have some sense of experience of online learning and have partners with whom you would like to develop exchange, I think we are kind of exceptionally allowing people to take the advanced training. So if you have somebody with whom you already want to develop a course, then yes.
Thank you. So great flexibility from this side also. Juliet, sorry, for the last question we noted for now, there was a question for Sarah, I think.
Yes, regarding a guide, step-by-step, how to get on that. And thank you, Fabio, for putting the slide precisely on the handbook for international relations officers, which is online. And I will now share again on the chat to the link, which is also in this slide. And this handbook was developed to enable you to find all the steps which you will be required to follow in order to get involved. You will find all the activities which have been presented here, and very interestingly, you also find some templates for you to get in touch with your departments in case you are international relations officers, or how to involve students and so on. And there will be further initiatives in this respect to guide you step by step in this approach.
Yeah, and I would like to add that the answers to most of the questions that I'm reading now in the chat are in this handbook. So in terms of let's say modalities and details and especially cases, you can read there what we heard before from our two colleagues, exactly how they implemented this in practice is explained there through a number of mini stories that can inspire you and where you can see how to do it. So I think this is a very important document to start from. And this brings me to the last slide.
Fabio, I'm gonna ask you, Stephanie, there are two questions that I think are very relevant for you before we close, about this being a pilot program and also about the accessibility for different countries.
Yes, thank you, Juliet. I was trying to raise my hand to answer those questions. So yeah, this is indeed a pilot project, which for the time being is for sure going to run until the end of 2020. We're very much working towards and hoping that the European Commission will invest in moving from a pilot to a full-scale program, which would be mainstreamed into the Erasmus program. We are very hopeful that this will